You're bleeding on my marble floor, Omega. Evelina's knees buckled against the cold stone, silver hair plastered to her face by rain that shouldn't exist indoors. But this was the rejection chamber, where even the architecture wept for broken bonds. 3 days. Alpha King Louis Griffin circled her like a predator examining damaged prey, his eyes burning gold in the darkness. That's how long the mate bond has been screaming at me to claim you. 3 days of my wolf clawing at my insides. Hope fluttered in her chest. He felt it. He felt it. And today I'm ending it. The hope died. Or weak. Your bloodline is polluted. Your silver hair marks you as a throwback to the cursed lunar line. His voice dropped to something worse than anger, indifference. You will never be my queen. The formal words came next, each one a knife. I, Louis Griffin, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, reject you, Evelina Tom, as my fated mate. I sever our bond. I cast you out. The pain was exquisite, like her soul being torn in half. Please, her voice broke. The bond. You can't just. I can do anything I want. I'm the king. He turned toward the massive doors. You have until sunrise to leave my territory. If you're still here when I wake, I'll have you executed for trespassing. 6 hours later at the outskirts, Evelina collapsed behind an abandoned greenhouse, rain mixing with blood and tears. Every breath was agony. Rejected omegas didn't survive long. The broken bond would poison her from the inside out. She should be dead already. But something was different. Something impossible. The pack healer's voice echoed in her memory from 2 days ago. Congratulations, Evelina. You're pregnant. Extraordinary. Really, omega conceptions from alphas are incredibly rare, especially from a king. Evelina pressed both hands to her stomach, feeling the faint flutter of life that shouldn't exist. Royal heirs were supposed to be impossible without a completed bond. Yet here it was. A heartbeat that the king didn't know about. A secret that would either save her or destroy her. Your Majesty, the kingdom is fracturing. Councilman Thorne's voice was careful, measured. Alpha Adrian Floyd has claimed the eastern provinces. He's saying your bloodline has grown weak. That you're infertile. Louis's claws shredded the armrest of his throne. For 3 weeks, his wolf had been dying. No sleep. No peace. Just the phantom ache of a severed bond and the rage of a beast that didn't understand why its mate was gone. Find me another suitable female, he growled. One with a pure bloodline. I need an heir. We've tried, Your Majesty. Your wolf rejects every woman we present. And there's another complication. Louis's eyes flashed dangerously. Adrian Floyd and Violet Curry have formed an alliance. They're hunting someone. A silver-haired omega. They're saying she's carrying a contaminated child. An abomination that needs to be eliminated. The world stopped. Silver hair. Omega. Impossible. Violet claims, Thorne continued, carefully not meeting the king's gaze, that this omega conceived a royal heir without a completed bond. She's calling it a violation of natural law. Adrian is offering a bounty. 50,000 gold pieces to whoever brings him the omega's head. Louis was on his feet before Thorne finished speaking. Omega. My king, surely you're not suggesting. Her name. The command shook the chamber windows. Evelina Tom, Your Majesty. The omega you rejected last month. Witnesses say she was seen at an underground clinic in the border territories. It was showing. The world tilted. Evelina. Pregnant. With his child. The heir he desperately needed. The heir that could stabilize his crumbling kingdom and prove his bloodline's strength. The heir he'd sentenced to death when he cast out its mother. Louis's wolf roared to the surface, and for the first time in 3 weeks, it wasn't dying, it was hunting. Summon the royal guard, he commanded. His voice deadly calm. Every tracker. Every soldier. Every wolf who can still breathe. Your Majesty, what are you? I'm going to war. Louis's eyes burned with something beyond rage, beyond obsession. Adrian Floyd wants to kill my mate and my heir. He's going to learn what happens when you threaten what belongs to the king. But you rejected her, your majesty. The bond is severed. You have no legal claim. Lewis smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Thorn had ever seen. Then I'll paint my claim in the blood of anyone who stands between me and her. I'll burn every kingdom between here and the border. I'll tear apart anyone who's laid a hand on what's mine. He moved toward the door, then paused. And Thorn, when I bring her back, anyone who calls her rejected or contaminated, or questions her place at my side, I'll kill them myself. She's carrying the only heir my wolf will accept. That makes her the most valuable woman in this kingdom. And when you find her, your majesty, what if she refuses to return with you? Lewis's hand gripped the doorframe hard enough to splinter the wood. Then I'll get on my knees and beg. I'll swear any oath she demands. I'll crown her queen in front of every alpha who doubted her. His voice dropped to something raw, almost broken. I rejected her. I threw her away like she was nothing. But I was wrong. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it, if she gives me the chance. And if she doesn't, the king's smile turned savage. Then I'll still burn the world to keep her and my child safe. She doesn't have to forgive me. She doesn't have to love me. But she will survive. Even if I have to destroy my own kingdom to make it happen. The hunt for the rejected Omega has begun. But the question remains. Who is the hunter and who is the hunted? And when the Heartless King finally finds the woman carrying his impossible heir, will he reclaim her crown? Or will she make him bleed for every word of his rejection? One thing is certain. Kingdoms will burn before this is over. The abandoned textile factory smelled like rust and forgotten dreams. Evelina pressed herself against the rotting wall, counting the seconds between each hunter's footstep outside. 1, 2, 3. The boots moved past her hiding spot, crunching over broken glass. She exhaled slowly, her breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. 4 weeks since the rejection. 4 weeks of running, hiding, stealing food from dumpsters behind shifter restaurants that wouldn't serve her kind. 4 weeks of her silver hair betraying her location every time the moon caught it wrong. The baby fluttered inside her, a sensation like butterfly wings against her ribcage. Still so small, still so impossible, and yet undeniably there. Clear on the east side, a male voice called out, rough and eager. No sign of the silver bitch. Evelina's hand moved to her stomach instinctively, protective. They weren't even trying to be quiet anymore. The bounty had gone up 3 days ago. 75,000 gold pieces now. Enough money to retire on. Enough to make every desperate shifter in the territory hunt her like sport. She waited until their voices faded completely before moving. Her body protesting every step. The broken bond was killing her slowly, like poison in her veins. Most rejected Omegas died within 2 weeks. She should have been dead a fortnight ago. But the baby wouldn't let her die. She could feel it somehow, this tiny spark of life pulling strength from somewhere deep inside her, keeping her heart beating when it should have stopped. The healers said Omega pregnancies from alphas were rare. Royal pregnancies were supposed to be impossible without a completed bond. Yet here she was, carrying the most impossible child in shifter history. Evelina slipped through a gap in the factory's back wall, emerging into an alley that reeked of decay. The border territories were worse than she'd imagined, a lawless wasteland where rogues and outcasts scraped by on scraps, where silver-haired Omegas disappeared and no one asked questions. She'd learned quickly that her hair was both curse and beacon. In the northern territories, silver hair marked the lunar bloodline, a line of Omegas so powerful they'd been systematically eliminated generations ago. Lewis's ancestors had made sure of that. Can't have Omegas who could challenge Alpha authority. Now the only silver-haired shifters left were diluted throwbacks like her. Weak, powerless, unwanted. Except she was starting to suspect that wasn't entirely true. The first time it happened, she'd thought she was hallucinating from hunger. She'd been cornered in an alley by 2 rogue males, their intentions written clearly in their sneers. One had reached for her, and suddenly she'd known. Known he had a knife in his left boot, known his partner would circle behind her, known exactly how they'd attack. She'd moved before her brain caught up, dodging the knife, slamming her elbow into the second male's throat. They'd both gone down, shocked and gasping, while she'd fled into the night. Kept happening. Small things at first. Knowing which roads were being watched. Sensing when hunters were close even before she heard them. Feeling the intentions of people around her like a sixth sense. Now, creeping through the alley toward the old drainage pipe she'd been using as shelter, Evelina felt it again. That electric awareness sharpening her senses. Something was wrong. The air tasted different. Metallic. Dangerous. She froze 3 steps from the pipe's entrance. "I was wondering when you'd notice," a female voice purred from the shadows. "Your instincts are improving." Violet Curry stepped into the moonlight, her auburn hair perfectly styled despite the late hour, her designer coat pristine against the filth of the alley. Behind her, 3 male enforcers materialized from the darkness, blocking any escape route. Evelina's heart hammered against her ribs. Violet Curry, the socialite who'd been circling Lewis for years, desperate to be his queen. The woman who'd made it very clear that a silver-haired Omega had no business breathing the same air as royalty. "You've been quite difficult to find," Violet said, examining her manicured nails. "I'm impressed, really. A rejected Omega surviving this long. That takes a certain desperate tenacity. What do you want?" Evelina's voice came out steadier than she felt. "What do I want?" Violet laughed, the sound crystalline and cruel. "I want you dead, obviously. You're carrying an abomination. A royal heir conceived without a completed bond. That's not natural. That's not right." The baby kicked, as if responding to the threat. Evelina shifted her weight, calculating distances, odds, escape routes. 3 enforcers plus Violet. All of them stronger than her. All of them faster. But they didn't know what she was carrying. They didn't know what it was doing to her. "Adrian Floyd sends his regards," Violet continued, stepping closer. "He's very interested in making sure your little mistake never sees daylight. A competing heir would complicate his claim to the throne, you understand. And I can't have you crawling back to Lewis, playing the tragic pregnant Omega, manipulating him with his own guilt." "Lewis doesn't want me," Evelina said quietly. "He rejected me. He made that very clear." "Oh, sweetheart." Violet's smile was poison. "You have no idea how male wolves work, do you? Rejection or not, if Lewis discovers you're carrying his heir, his only possible heir, he'll move heaven and earth to claim you back. Not because he loves you, but because you're suddenly valuable. You're a broodmare carrying the kingdom's future." The words should have hurt. They should have cut deep into whatever remained of Evelina's broken heart. Instead, they ignited something else. Something fierce and maternal and absolutely done with being prey. "I'm not going back to him," Evelina said, her voice low and dangerous. "And you're not touching my baby." Violet's eyes widened slightly. "Your baby. Honey, that's not your baby. That's a royal heir. That's property of the crown. And right now, I'm doing the kingdom a favor by." She didn't get to finish. Evelina moved. Not away, but forward, faster than she'd ever moved in her life. Her heightened senses screamed information at her. The enforcer on the left had a bad knee. The one on the right was slower to react. Violet's confidence was her weakness. She slammed into Violet with her shoulder, sending the woman sprawling into a pile of garbage. The enforcers lunged, but Evelina was already spinning, her body moving on pure instinct. She felt rather than saw the first male's trajectory, ducked under his grab, drove her heel into his bad knee. He went down with a scream. The second enforcer caught her arm, his grip brutal enough to bruise. But Evelina twisted, using his own momentum against him, and suddenly his face was meeting the brick wall with a sickening crunch. The third one hesitated, shocked that a weak Omega had just taken down 2 trained fighters in seconds. That hesitation cost him. Evelina kicked out, catching him in the solar plexus, and ran. Behind her, Violet was shrieking orders, her voice shrill with rage and disbelief. But Evelina was already gone, her silver hair streaming behind her like a banner as she disappeared into the labyrinth of border territory alleys. Her lungs burned. Her body screamed in protest. The broken bond throbbed with every heartbeat. But she was alive. Her baby was alive. And for the first time since Louis had rejected her, Evelina felt something other than despair. She felt powerful. Whatever this pregnancy was doing to her, whatever impossible magic was flowing through her veins, it was changing her, making her faster, stronger, sharper. The lunar bloodline wasn't as dead as everyone believed. It was just dormant, waiting for the right catalyst. A royal heir, conceived against all odds, growing inside an Omega who wasn't supposed to exist. Evelina finally stopped running when she reached an old church on the outskirts of town, its sanctuary long abandoned but still standing. She collapsed on the steps, gasping, her hand pressed to her stomach. "We're going to be okay," she whispered to the baby. "I don't know how, but we're going to survive this. I'm not weak anymore. I'm not helpless. And I'm not going to let anyone, not Violet, not Adrian, not even your father, decide our fate." The baby kicked again, stronger this time. Almost like agreement. In the distance, sirens wailed. More hunters. More people who wanted her dead or captured or used. But for the first time since the rejection, Evelina wasn't just running away. She was running toward something. Toward strength. Toward survival. Toward a future where she wasn't defined by the man who'd thrown her away. And if Louis Griffin ever found her again, he was going to discover that the weak Omega he'd rejected was gone. In her place was something far more dangerous. A mother with nothing left to lose and everything to protect. Let them come. Let them all come. She'd burn them down first. If this story has held you this long, subscribing is how you help it continue. Thank you. Now back to the story. Louis Griffin hadn't slept in 5 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw silver hair disappearing into the rain. Every time he breathed, he felt the phantom ache of a bond that shouldn't still exist but somehow did, like a limb that had been amputated but still screamed in phantom pain. His wolf was dying. He could feel it withering inside him, growing weaker with each passing hour. The beast that had once been an unstoppable force of nature now barely stirred, curled up in some dark corner of his soul, whimpering for a mate it would never have. "Your Majesty, Adrian Floyd's forces have taken the western garrison." Commander Rafe's voice cut through the fog of exhaustion. "That's 3 territories in 2 weeks. He's moving faster than our intelligence predicted." Louis stared at the war map spread across his desk, the red markers indicating lost ground multiplying like a disease. Adrian Floyd. His former ally, now his greatest threat. An alpha who'd been waiting years for any sign of weakness to exploit. And Louis had given him the perfect opening by rejecting his fated mate. "What about the alpha flame?" Louis asked, his voice rough from disuse. "Can we access it without?" "No, Your Majesty." Rafe's expression was grim. "The legends are clear. Only a true heir of your bloodline can ignite the alpha flame. It's been dormant since your father's death. Without it, our defenses are compromised. Adrian knows this. The alpha flame, the ancient power that had protected the northern territories for generations, a mystical fire that could only be wielded by a legitimate royal heir. When Louis's father died, the flame had gone dark, waiting for Louis to produce an heir of his own to reignite it. An heir he couldn't seem to create. An heir his wolf refused to make with anyone except. Louis slammed his fist on the desk hard enough to crack the wood. Pain flared up his arm, sharp and grounding. He deserved pain. "Bring me another candidate," he growled. "There has to be someone my wolf will accept." Rafe's silence was answer enough. They tried. Goddess, they tried. Every unmated female alpha from every respectable bloodline in the kingdom. Louis's wolf had rejected them all, sometimes violently. The last woman had barely escaped with her life when his wolf had lunged at her throat, enraged by her scent, her presence, her very existence. Because she wasn't Evelina. Your Majesty, perhaps if we discussed alternative strategies. There are no alternatives. Louis's voice cracked like a whip. Without an heir, the alpha flame stays dark. Without the flame, our magical defenses fail. Without defenses, Adrian marches straight into the capital and takes everything. I need an heir, Rafe. I need. He stopped. His chest constricted suddenly, violently, like an invisible hand had wrapped around his heart and squeezed. The phantom bond flared to life, searing through his nervous system with such intensity that his knees buckled. Fear. Terror. Adrenaline. Not his emotions, hers. Evelina was in danger. Your Majesty. Rafe moved forward, alarmed. Sir, you need to sit. She's fighting, Louis gasped, pressing his hand to his chest. The bond wasn't supposed to work like this. He'd severed it. He'd broken it cleanly, completely. But somehow, impossibly, he could still feel her. Still sense her across the miles that separated them. Someone's attacking her. Who, Your Majesty? Louis's eyes snapped to Rafe, burning gold. Evelina. The name hung in the air like an accusation. Rafe's expression shifted from confusion to careful neutrality. Everyone knew about the rejection. Everyone knew the king had cast out his fated mate. No one dared speak her name in his presence. Till now. The Omega you rejected, Rafe said slowly. Your Majesty, the bond should be. I know what it should be. Louis snarled, his wolf surging forward, desperate and furious. But I can feel her. Right now. She's terrified and she's fighting and she's. The sensation shifted, intensified. She's protecting something. Something small. Something precious. Something that pulsed with a familiar energy that made Louis's wolf howl in recognition. Whoa. Impossible. Get me Councilman Thorne, Louis commanded. His voice deadly calm. Now. Rafe hesitated only a second before bowing and leaving. Louis stood alone in his office, hands braced on the desk, trying to control the trembling that had started in his core and was spreading outward. His wolf was no longer dying. His wolf was raging, clawing at his insides, demanding he shift and run and find her now. The door opened again. Thorne entered, his expression wary. The old councilman had been avoiding Louis since their last conversation about Evelina's supposed pregnancy. Smart man. Tell me the truth, Louis said without preamble. The Omega. Evelina. Is she really pregnant? Thorne's face went carefully blank. Your Majesty, we discussed this. The reports are unconfirmed. Is pregnant. Each word was a command that reverberated with alpha authority. Thorne's resistance crumbled under the weight of that power. Yes, Your Majesty. Our spies confirmed it 2 days ago. She was seen at an underground healer's clinic. For months along. The healer reported that the child's aura is unprecedented. Royal bloodline. Unmistakably yours. The world tilted. Louis gripped the desk so hard the wood splintered under his claws. For months. She'd been pregnant when he rejected her. When he'd thrown her out into the rain like garbage. When he'd threatened to execute her if she didn't leave his territory. He'd condemned his own child to death without knowing it existed. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Louis's voice was ice. You made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with the Omega, Your Majesty. And the situation is complicated. The child shouldn't exist. Rejected mates cannot conceive. The bond needs to be intact for. Clearly that's not true, Louis interrupted. His mind was racing, pieces falling into place. The phantom bond. I can still feel her. Because of the child. The heir is keeping the bond alive somehow. Thorne nodded slowly. That's our theory. The child is so powerful, so determined to survive, that it's maintaining the bond from inside the womb. Your wolf didn't reject her. Your wolf never accepted the rejection. It's been dying because you forced it to abandon its pregnant mate. Louis closed his eyes. The magnitude of his mistake crashed over him like a tidal wave. He'd rejected his fated mate while she carried his heir. The heir that could save his kingdom. The child that could reignite the alpha flame. The only offspring his wolf would ever accept. And he'd thrown them both away because of pride. Because of his obsession with bloodline purity. Because he'd been too blind to see that Evelina's silver hair marked her as something rare and powerful, not weak and disposable. Adrian Floyd knows, Louis said flatly. That's why he's been hunting her. Yes, Your Majesty. He's partnered with Violet Curry. They want the Omega dead before she can give birth. A competing heir would destroy Adrian's claim to your throne. Where is she now? Last reported in the border territories, near the old textile district. But Your Majesty, you should know. She attacked 3 of Violet's enforcers tonight. Took them down in less than 30 seconds. Witnesses say she moved like a lunar bloodline Omega. Louis's head snapped up. Lunar bloodline. Those were exterminated. Apparently not completely. The silver hair wasn't just a cosmetic throwback. The pregnancy has awakened something in her. She's developing abilities that shouldn't be possible for a wolf her rank. A lunar Omega carrying a royal heir. No wonder the child was so powerful. No wonder it was keeping the bond alive against all odds. His ancestors had systematically eliminated the lunar bloodline because they were too powerful, too dangerous to Alpha authority. And Louis had found the last one and rejected her. I'm going after her, Louis said, already moving toward the door. Your Majesty, you can't leave the capital. Adrian's forces are. Adrian's forces can burn the capital to the ground for all I care. Louis whirled on Thorn. His eyes fully gold now. His wolf surging to the surface. My mate is pregnant and being hunted. My heir, the only heir that can save this kingdom, is in danger. Everything else is secondary. And if she refuses to return with you, she has every right to. Then I'll beg. The words came out raw, stripped of all kingly authority. I'll get on my knees in the mud and I'll beg her forgiveness. I'll swear any oath she demands. I'll give her anything, the crown, the kingdom, my life. Whatever she wants, it's hers. Thorn stared at him. You're serious? I rejected my pregnant mate, Thorn. I threw away the woman carrying my child because I was too arrogant to see what was right in front of me. My wolf is dying. My kingdom is crumbling. And the only thing that matters, the only thing that has ever mattered, is out there alone and terrified, fighting for her life while carrying my heir. Louis's voice broke. So yes, I'm deadly serious. He turned toward the door then paused. Mobilize the royal guard. Every tracker. Every soldier loyal to the crown. We're going to the border territories. And when we find her, Your Majesty, what are your orders? Louis's smile was savage and broken all at once. We protect her. We eliminate anyone who's threatened her. And then I spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of being in the same room as her, let alone being the father of her child. Adrian Floyd will use your absence to. Let him try. Louis's voice dropped to something ancient and deadly. If he wants my throne, he can take it. But if he touches my mate, if he so much as looks at my child, I will end his entire bloodline. I'll burn his territories to ash. I'll make him wish he'd never been born. The phantom bond pulsed again, fainter now. Evelina's fear had subsided. She'd escaped whatever danger had threatened her. Relief flooded through Louis so intensely it nearly brought him to his knees. She was alive. Now. But the border territories were crawling with bounty hunters, rogues, and Adrian's spies. How long could a pregnant Omega survive alone, even one with awakening lunar bloodline powers? Prepare my horse, Louis commanded. We leave within the hour. Your Majesty, it's a 3-day ride to the border. Then we'll make it in 2. Louis was already striding down the corridor, his voice echoing off the stone walls. Send word ahead. Anyone who's seen a silver-haired Omega and doesn't report it immediately will be charged with treason. Anyone who's harmed her will be executed. Anyone who helps us find her will be rewarded beyond their wildest dreams." Behind him, Thorn called out, "And the Alpha Flame, Your Majesty? Without you here to defend the capital." Lewis didn't break stride. "The Alpha Flame will reignite when my heir is born. Until then, the capital will have to defend itself. My priority is finding Evelina before Adrian does. Nothing else matters." 'Cause it was true. The kingdom, the throne, the Alpha Flame, none of it meant anything without her. Without them. His wolf was already running, racing across an invisible bond toward the mate it had never stopped loving, even when Lewis had been stupid enough to let her go. He was coming for her. And heaven help anyone who stood in his way. Violet Curry's heels clicked against the marble floor of Adrian Floyd's private study with the precision of an executioner's countdown. She'd worn her most expensive dress for this meeting, crimson silk that cost more than most shifters earned in a year. Power dressing for a power play. Adrian didn't look up from the documents spread across his mahogany desk. "You're late, Miss Curry." "I'm never late, Alpha Floyd. I'm precisely on time for the conversation that will hand you a kingdom." Violet settled into the leather chair across from him, crossing her legs with calculated elegance. "I assume you've heard about the Omega problem. The silver-haired one." Adrian finally lifted his gaze. His eyes the color of old copper. "The one Lewis was foolish enough to reject. What about her?" "She's pregnant." Violet watched his expression shift from mild interest to sharp attention. But she had him. For months along. Carrying Lewis Griffin's heir. The heir that could reignite the Alpha Flame and restore the Northern Territory's defenses. Adrian set down his pen with deliberate slowness. "That's impossible. Rejected mates cannot conceive." "And yet," Violet pulled a photograph from her purse, sliding it across the desk. A grainy image of Evelina leaving a clinic, her hand unconsciously pressed to her stomach, her silver hair unmistakable even in poor lighting. "My sources at the Underground Healers Network confirmed it yesterday. The child's aura is so powerful they could feel it from across the room. Royal bloodline. Undeniably Lewis's. And apparently strong enough to maintain a phantom bond despite the rejection." Adrian studied the photograph, his jaw tightening. "If Lewis discovers this, he'll do exactly what his instincts demand. He'll reclaim her, crown her queen, and produce the heir that secures his throne for the next generation." Violet leaned forward. "Your entire campaign collapses the moment that child is born. You've spent 2 years positioning yourself as his successor because he's been unable to produce an heir. This changes everything. Then we eliminate the problem." Adrian's voice was cold, practical. "Put a bounty on her head. Make it look like rogue violence." "Already tried. She's proven surprisingly difficult to kill." Violet's painted nails drummed against the armrest. "She's developing abilities. Moving faster than she should. Fighting like someone with training she shouldn't have. My enforcers couldn't take her down, and they're not amateurs." "Lunar bloodline," Adrian said softly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "The silver hair isn't just cosmetic. She's one of them. A dormant lunar Omega awakened by a royal pregnancy. The most dangerous combination imaginable." Violet's smile was razor-sharp. "Which is why I'm here. I need resources. Real hunters. The kind who can track and eliminate a target even if she's developing supernatural abilities." Adrian leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. "What's in it for you, Miss Curry? Why do you care so much about Lewis Griffin's domestic situation?" "Because I was supposed to be his queen." The words came out harder than Violet intended. She smoothed her expression back to calculated neutrality. "I've spent 5 years positioning myself, making the right connections, eliminating the competition. Then this nobody Omega with throwback genetics triggers his mate bond and suddenly I'm irrelevant. I won't be cast aside for some silver-haired breeding stock." Jealousy is a dangerous motivator. So is ambition. Violet met his gaze steadily. You want the throne. I want revenge. We both need that Omega dead before Louis finds her. This is a mutually beneficial arrangement. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, weighing options, calculating risks. If I provide the resources you need, and we succeed in eliminating the Omega and the Heir, what's to stop Louis from simply trying again with another female? His wolf won't accept anyone else. The mate bond is too strong, even broken. He'll be unable to produce another heir. The alpha flame will remain dark, and his kingdom will continue to crumble. Violet's smile turned predatory. You march in as the strong alpha who can restore order. I become your queen. Everyone wins. Except Louis. Especially Louis. Violet stood, smoothing her dress. So do we have an agreement, Alpha Floyd? Adrian rose as well, extending his hand. We do. I'll assign my best hunters to track her. But Miss Curry, if this goes wrong, if Louis discovers our involvement before the job is complete, I will deny everything. You'll take the fall alone. It won't go wrong. Violet shook his hand, her grip firm. That Omega is running on borrowed time and maternal instinct. She's alone, scared, and hiding in territory she doesn't know. My hunters will have her within the week. And the child? Eliminated before it draws its first breath. Violet's voice was ice. No heir. No alpha flame. No salvation for the Northern Territories. Just a weak Omega who should have known better than to dream above her station. Louis's boots crunched through broken glass as he entered the abandoned clinic. The place reeked of antiseptic and desperation, the kind of establishment where shifters came when they couldn't afford legitimate healers or needed their medical needs kept quiet. Underground. Untraceable. Exactly where a rejected Omega would go if she were pregnant and terrified. Your Majesty, perhaps you should let us search first, Rafe suggested from behind him. This area isn't secure. Then secure it. Louis moved deeper into the clinic, his enhanced senses cataloging every detail. 3 examination rooms, small surgery, a dispensary that had been hastily cleared out, and everywhere, lingering scents of dozens of different shifters seeking help they couldn't find elsewhere. But underneath it all, faint but unmistakable, was the scent he'd been hunting for 3 days. Rain and moonlight, silver and strength, Evelina. His wolf surged forward, desperate and hungry. She'd been here. Recently. Within the last week. Louis followed the scent to the middle examination room. The door hung crooked on its hinges. Inside, the examination table was bare except for a thin sheet stained with what looked like iodine. Medical supplies had been swept from the counter in a hurry. Someone had left fast. But they'd left something behind. On the floor, caught in a crack between the tiles, was a single strand of hair. Long silver. Unmistakable. Louis knelt, picking it up with trembling fingers. The moment he touched it, the phantom bond exploded to life, searing through his nervous system with such intensity that his vision whited out. He gasped, bracing himself against the floor, overwhelmed by the surge of sensation. Not just Evelina's presence. Something else. Something smaller, newer, burning impossibly bright within her. An aura so powerful it made his wolf whimper in submission and awe. His heir. Your Majesty. Rafe was beside him instantly. Sir, what's wrong? She was here, Louis managed, his voice wrecked. She was here and she's... He couldn't finish. The magnitude of what he was sensing through that single strand of hair was beyond words. The child's power was astronomical. Greater than Louis's own. Greater than his father's had been. Greater than any royal heir in recorded history. This wasn't just a strong wolf. This was something that legends were made of. And he'd almost lost it. Almost lost them both. Summon the healer, Louis commanded, forcing himself back to his feet. Whoever runs this clinic. I want them found within the hour. Your Majesty, underground healers don't exactly. I don't care if you have to drag them from the depths of hell itself. Find them. Now. Rafe bowed and left. Lewis stood alone in the examination room, the silver hair still clutched in his fist, trying to process what he'd just felt through the bond. Lunar Omega. A royal heir. A combination so powerful it defied natural law. His ancestors had exterminated the lunar bloodline because they feared exactly this. An Omega powerful enough to challenge Alpha supremacy, especially if paired with royal blood. They'd hunted the silver-haired wolves to near extinction, ensuring their own bloodlines remained dominant. Lewis had studied the histories. The lunar Omegas of old could do things other wolves couldn't. Move faster. Fight harder. Sense danger before it arrived. Heal from wounds that should have been fatal. And most terrifying of all, they could influence other wolves through sheer force of will, bending even alphas to their authority. The last documented lunar Omega had been executed 300 years ago. The bloodline was supposed to be dead. Except it wasn't. It had been dormant waiting. And Evelina, beautiful silver-haired Evelina who he'd dismissed as weak and inferior, carried that ancient power in her veins. And now she was awakening. The pregnancy was acting as a catalyst, unlocking abilities that should have been lost to time. She'd fought off Violet's enforcers. She'd survived 4 months alone in hostile territory while rejected and pregnant, when most Omegas died within weeks. She was magnificent, and he'd thrown her away like trash. Lewis pressed his forehead against the cold examination table, fighting the urge to shift and run and hunt until he found her. But he needed information first. Needed to know where she'd gone, who she'd talked to, what condition she was in. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Rafe returned with an elderly woman in tow. Her face deeply lined and her eyes wary. The healer. You wanted to see me, Your Majesty, she said, her voice careful. I don't want any trouble. No trouble. Lewis straightened, turning to face her. I need information about a patient. Silver-haired Omega. 4 months pregnant. She was here within the last week. The healer's expression closed down. I don't discuss my patients with. I'm not asking as a king. Lewis's voice cracked. I'm asking as the father of that child. The mate who failed her. Please. I need to know if she's all right. Something in his tone must have reached her because the healer's defensive posture softened slightly. She came 6 days ago. Needed prenatal vitamins and a wellness check. Child is healthy. Incredibly healthy. I've never felt an aura that strong. He paused. The mother, however, is struggling. Lewis's heart seized. Struggling how? The broken bond is killing her. Slowly but inevitably. Most rejected Omegas die within 2 weeks. She's lasted 4 months only because the child is so powerful it's sustaining her. But that can't last forever. The strain on her body. The healer shook her head. Without the bond being restored, she has maybe another month before her system shuts down completely. The child will continue to pull strength from her until there's nothing left. The world tilted. Lewis gripped the examination table for support. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you don't find her and complete the bond, Your Majesty, they'll both die. The child is too powerful for a rejected Omega to carry to term. It needs the stability of a completed mate bond to survive the pregnancy. Right now, it's a parasite draining her life force, even though it doesn't mean to. How do I complete the bond if she doesn't want me? The question came out raw, desperate. I rejected her. I severed it. How do I? You ask, the healer said simply. You beg if necessary. The bond can be restored if both parties consent. But Your Majesty, she has every right to refuse you. You threw her away while she was carrying your child. You condemned her to death. Why would she trust you now? She wouldn't. Lewis's voice was hollow. She'd be smart not to. Then you'd better find a way to convince her. Because without that bond, you're going to lose both your mate and your heir. And from what I sensed of that child's power, the healer met his gaze steadily. Losing that heir would be a tragedy for all of shifter kind. That child is special, Your Majesty. Unprecedented. It deserves a chance to live. Louis nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. The healer was right. This wasn't about him or his mistakes or his regrets. This was about an innocent life that hadn't asked to be conceived in the middle of a rejection. A child who was fighting to survive against impossible odds. His child. Their child. Where did she go? He asked. Did she say anything about where she was headed? She asked about safe houses in the western border territories. Places where she could hide until the birth. The healer's expression was pitying. Your Majesty, she's terrified. Not just of the people hunting her but of you. She thinks you'll try to take the child and dispose of her once it's born. Course she did. Why wouldn't she? He'd given her every reason to believe he valued nothing about her except what she could provide. If you see her again, Louis said quietly, tell her I'm not coming to take her child. Tell her I'm coming to beg her forgiveness. Tell her I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of being in the same room as her, let alone being the father of her baby. The healer studied him for a long moment. You really love her. I rejected her, Louis corrected, his voice breaking. I threw away my fated mate because I was too blind and arrogant to see what she was. But yes, I love her. And I'll burn the entire world down to keep her and our child safe. He turned to Rafe. Western border territories. Safe houses. Start searching. Your Majesty, that's hundreds of square miles. Then we search every inch. Louis headed for the door. His purpose crystallizing with every step. Adrian Floyd has hunters looking for her. Violet Curry wants her dead. And Evelina is out there alone, dying slowly, carrying a child so powerful it's draining her life force. He paused at the threshold, his wolf rising to the surface, gold eyes burning in the dim light. We find her. We protect her. And anyone who's threatened her, anyone who's made her afraid or hurt her or tried to take her from me, I'm going to tear them apart with my bare hands. Adrian, Violet, every bounty hunter in the territories. They're all going to learn what happens when you threaten the Alpha King's mate. Even though you rejected her. Rafe asked quietly. Especially because I rejected her. Louis's voice was steel. I failed her once. I will not fail her again. Even if she never forgives me. Even if she refuses to restore the bond. Even if she hates me for the rest of our lives. She will survive this. Our child will survive this. And I'll spend every remaining day earning the right to be called their protector. He stormed out of the clinic into the fading light. His wolf already tracking, hunting, desperate to find the silver-haired Omega who carried his heart and his heir. Time was running out. For Evelina. For the child. For them all. But Louis Griffin had waged wars and conquered kingdoms. He'd bent reality to his will through sheer force of dominance. Finding his mate should be simple in comparison. He just prayed he'd reach her before Adrian did. Before Violet did. Before the broken bond claimed her life. Before he lost the only thing in this world that had ever truly mattered. Louis found her in an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the Western Territories, surrounded by broken machinery and the ghosts of industry long dead. She was sitting on a makeshift bed of stolen blankets, her silver hair pulled back in a braid, one hand resting protectively on her swollen stomach. She looked up as he entered, and the fear that flashed across her face nearly brought him to his knees. Don't, she said, her voice steady despite the terror in her eyes. Don't come any closer. Louis stopped immediately, raising his hands in surrender. Evelina, I'm not here to hurt you. You already did. She stood slowly, her movements careful. At 5 months pregnant, she was showing clearly now, the curve of her belly unmistakable. You rejected me. You threw me away. You told me I was weak and disposable and not fit to be your queen. So what are you doing here, Your Majesty? Come to finish the job. I came to beg your forgiveness. The words came out raw, stripped of all kingly authority. I was wrong. About everything. About you, about us, about what strength really means. Wrong. Evelina laughed, the sound bitter and broken. You were wrong. That's supposed to make it better. I nearly died, Lewis. I'm still dying. The bond you severed is poisoning me from the inside out. The only reason I'm still breathing is because our child won't let me die. I know. Lewis took a careful step forward, stopping when she flinched. The healer told me. You have a month, maybe less. The child is too powerful for a rejected Omega to carry to term. Without the completed bond. Don't. Her voice cracked. Don't you dare make this about the child. You don't care about me. You never did. You just realized you need an heir and I'm the only one who can give you one. Well, congratulations, Your Majesty. You created the perfect political nightmare for yourself. You're right. Lewis's voice was quiet, defeated. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve to be in the same room as you. But Evelina, please. Let me restore the bond. Me save you both. You can hate me for the rest of our lives if you want. You can refuse to speak to me, refuse to acknowledge me. I'll give you anything. A separate palace, your own territory, complete autonomy. Just please. Don't die because of my mistakes. And what happens after the child is born? Evelina's eyes blazed silver in the dim light. You take your heir and discard me again. You raise my baby to think their mother was weak and inferior. You teach them that Omegas are disposable. No. Lewis took another step, his wolf whimpering at her pain, her rage, her justified hatred. I would never. You already did. The words exploded from her. You looked at me, your fated mate, and decided I wasn't good enough, that my bloodline was tainted, that I was weak. So forgive me if I don't trust your sudden change of heart now that you've realized I'm carrying something you want. It's not about what I want, Lewis said desperately. It's about keeping you alive. Both of you. Evelina, Adrian Floyd has hunters tracking you. Violet Curry wants you dead. There's a bounty on your head that gets higher every day. You can't survive out here alone. I've survived for 5 months. And you're dying. The words came out harsher than he intended. Lewis forced himself to take a breath, to gentle his tone. You're dying, Evelina. And our child is dying with you. Whatever you think of me, whatever I deserve, they don't deserve this. They didn't ask to be conceived in the middle of a rejection. They're innocent. Evelina's hand moved to her stomach, protective and fierce. You think I don't know that? You think I don't feel them fighting to survive every single day? I would die 1,000 times over to give this child a chance at life. But I won't go back to you. I won't put myself in the power of a man who's already proven he'll throw me away when I'm inconvenient. Then don't come back to me. Lewis dropped to his knees, royal pride abandoned on the dirty warehouse floor. Stay here. Stay anywhere you want. I'll send healers, guards, whatever you need. I'll protect you from a distance. Just let me restore the bond. Let me give you both a fighting chance. Evelina stared at him, silver eyes wide with shock. You're serious? I rejected my pregnant fated mate because I was too blind to see what she was, Lewis said, his voice breaking. I almost killed the most precious thing in my life because of my own arrogance. So yes, I'm serious. I'll do anything. I'll give up the throne if that's what you want. I'll abdicate, disappear, whatever it takes. Just survive. Please. For a moment, something softened in her expression. Hope flickered in Lewis's chest, desperate and fragile. Then her eyes went wide, looking past him toward the warehouse entrance. Get down! Lewis spun just as the explosion ripped through the wall. Debris rained down in a shower of concrete and twisted metal. Through the smoke and dust, figures emerged. At least a dozen armed shifters, their eyes gleaming with predatory intent and promised gold. Adrian's hunters. Well, well. The lead hunter, a scarred beta with dead eyes, smiled coldly. The Alpha King himself. Adrian will pay extra for your head, Your Majesty. And the Omega. That's a 100,000 gold peace prize right there. Lewis rose slowly, positioning himself between the hunters and Evelina. Leave. This is your only warning. Or what? The hunter laughed. You're one alpha and we're 12. The omega's pregnant and weak. This is the easiest money we'll ever make. I said leave. Lewis's voice dropped to something ancient and terrible. His wolf surged forward, no longer dying, no longer whimpering. It was awake, and it was furious, and it had found its mate and child in danger. Kill the king first, the lead hunter commanded. Then take the omega alive. Adrian wants her to suffer. They attacked as one coordinated unit. They were fast, trained, deadly. They weren't fast enough. Lewis shifted mid-lunge, his lichen form erupting in an explosion of power that shook the warehouse foundations. He was massive in his true form, nearly 8 feet of pure muscle and primal rage. His fur midnight black, his eyes burning gold. Most alphas lost control in their lichen form, reduced to mindless beasts. Lewis had always maintained perfect, calculated control. Till now. Now he was rage incarnate. Vengeance given form. Death wearing fur and fangs. The first hunter died before he could scream, Lewis's claws punching through his chest and out his back. The second lost his head in a single swipe. The third tried to run and made it 3 steps before Lewis's jaws closed around his spine. Fall back! Someone yelled. Fall back, he's. Lewis didn't let them fall back. He was already moving, faster than any lichen should be able to move, a black blur of lethal intent. Claws shredded flesh. Fangs tore through bone. Blood painted the warehouse walls in arterial spray. One hunter made it past him, lunging for Evelina with a knife. Lewis's roar shook the building. He crossed the distance in an impossible leap, catching the hunter mid-strike, his jaws closing around the male's throat. The crunch of vertebrae echoed in the sudden silence. 8 dead in less than a minute. 4 remaining hunters backed toward the hole in the wall, their weapons shaking in their hands. Please, one whimpered. We were just doing a job. We didn't know. Lewis shifted back to human form, standing naked and covered in blood among the corpses of those who'd threatened his mate. His voice was perfectly calm, perfectly cold. You came here to kill my pregnant mate. You came here to murder my unborn child. You followed orders from a traitor who wants my throne. He took a step forward, and the hunters flinched. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to run back to Adrian Floyd. You're going to tell him exactly what you saw here. And you're going to deliver a message. What message? The hunter gasped. That if he sends anyone else after Evelina, I will do to him what I just did to your friends. I will tear him apart slowly. I will make him beg for death. And then I will burn his territories to the ground and salt the earth so nothing ever grows there again. Lewis's smile was terrible. I am the Alpha King. I have waged wars and conquered kingdoms. And I will destroy anyone who threatens what is mine. The hunters ran, scrambling through the hole in the wall, their terror palpable. Lewis turned back to Evelina, his rage evaporating instantly. Are you hurt? Did any of them? You killed them. Her voice was shaking. You killed them all in seconds. They were going to hurt you. Hurt our child. Lewis moved toward her slowly, careful not to spook her despite the blood coating his skin. I meant what I said, Evelina. I will burn kingdoms for you. I will destroy anyone who threatens you. You don't have to love me. You don't have to forgive me. But I will keep you safe or die trying. Evelina stared at him, silver eyes wide. Then slowly she reached out and touched his face. Her hand came away bloody, but she didn't flinch. You really mean it, she whispered. This isn't about the heir. This isn't about politics or the kingdom. This is about you. Lewis's voice broke. It has always been about you. I was just too stupid to see it. But I see it now. You're magnificent, Evelina. You're strong and fierce and powerful, and I was a blind fool to ever think otherwise. A tear rolled down her cheek. The bond is killing me, Lewis. Can feel it. Every day I'm weaker. I don't know how much longer. Then let me restore it. He cupped her face gently, reverently. Please. Let me fix what I broke. Let me give you and our child a chance. She searched his eyes for a long moment, looking for deception, for hidden motives. Louis let her look, hiding nothing. Finally she nodded. Okay. But Louis, if you ever make me feel disposable again, I will take our child and disappear so completely you'll never find us. Lunar bloodline omegas can do things you can't imagine. I'm not weak anymore. I won't be cast aside again. I know. Louis pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in, memorizing this moment. You were never weak. I was just too weak to see your strength. Evelina pulled back slightly, meeting his gaze. Then prove it. Restore the bond. But this time we do it as equals. Not king and omega. Mates. Equals, Louis agreed, his wolf singing with joy. Mates. He could feel Adrian's hunters fleeing in the distance. Could sense more threats gathering on the horizon. Violet was out there somewhere plotting revenge. The kingdom was crumbling. War was coming. None of it mattered. His mate was alive. His child was alive. And he would burn the entire world to keep them that way. Let Adrian come. Let them all come. They'd learn what happened when they threatened the Alpha King's family. The restored bond changed everything. Within hours of Louis completing the mating ritual, color returned to Evelina's cheeks. Within days, her strength surged back. Within a week, she was radiant, her silver hair gleaming like starlight, her lunar bloodline powers fully awakened and blazing through her veins. But Adrian Floyd wasn't waiting for her to recover. The attack came 3 weeks later, just as the healers predicted the child would arrive. Adrian's forces surrounded the royal palace at dawn, thousands of soldiers bearing his banner, demanding Louis's abdication and Evelina's execution. Your Majesty, we must evacuate the Queen, Rafe urged, his face grim as he studied the war room maps. Adrian's forces had surrounded the palace on 3 sides, cutting off most escape routes. If they breach the walls. No. Louis's voice was granite. We don't run. Not anymore. Evelina stood beside him, one hand pressed to her swollen belly, the other resting on the hilt of a silver dagger. She was 9 months pregnant and glowing with power that made even the Alpha Guards nervous. He's right. Running won't solve this. Adrian won't stop until he's destroyed us both. My queen, with respect, you're about to give birth. You shouldn't be. I'm exactly where I need to be. Evelina's silver eyes flashed with an authority that made Rafe instinctively bow his head. Lunar bloodline omegas didn't just carry power, they commanded it. This is my kingdom now too. I won't abandon it. The first contractions hit an hour later, just as Adrian's battering rams struck the outer gates. Evelina gasped, doubling over, and Louis was at her side instantly. We need to get you to the birthing chamber. Now. No time, she managed through gritted teeth. The baby's coming fast. Too fast. As if in response, a surge of power rippled through the palace, making the walls tremble. Every wolf in the building felt it. The approaching arrival of something unprecedented, something that would change the balance of power forever. The alpha flame, dormant for a generation, suddenly flickered to life in the throne room below. Impossible, Councilman Thorne breathed, staring at the ancient brazier that now glowed with ethereal fire. The heir isn't even born yet. That child is more powerful than any of us imagined, Louis said, supporting Evelina as another contraction ripped through her. It's responding to the threat, preparing to defend its territory. The outer gates fell with a thunderous crash. Adrian's forces poured into the courtyard, overwhelming the first line of defenders. They were fighting their way toward the throne room, toward the royal chambers, toward Evelina and the child that threatened Adrian's claim to power. Your Majesty, we have perhaps 10 minutes before they breach the inner sanctum, Rafe reported. I need orders. Louis looked at Evelina, at his mate who was about to give birth in the middle of a siege, who should be safe and protected but instead was standing tall and fierce with power crackling around her like lightning. We make our stand here, he decided. In the throne room. Rafe, get the healers. Thorne, Summon every royal guard still loyal to the crown. We defend the queen and the heir at all costs. The throne room. Thorn looked scandalized. Your Majesty, births are private affairs, not public spectacles. This isn't a normal birth. Evelina's voice cut through the noise, strong despite the pain. This is the arrival of the true heir. Let Adrian come. Let everyone see what they're trying to destroy. They barely made it to the throne room before the next contraction hit. The healers laid out blankets on the dais steps, creating a makeshift birthing area directly in front of the ancient throne. The alpha flame burned brighter with each passing moment, responding to the approaching child. This is madness, one of the older council members muttered. A queen giving birth in front of the court. It's undignified. It's necessary. Lewis's voice carried absolute authority. My mate will give birth wherever she chooses. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave. Permanently. The council member shut his mouth and backed away. Outside, the sounds of battle grew closer. Swords clashing. Wolves howling. Adrian's forces were cutting through the defenders like a scythe through wheat. Then Violet Curry's voice echoed through the halls, shrill and triumphant. Find the Omega. Adrian wants her head before she can birth that abomination. Evelina screamed as another contraction seized her, this one lasting nearly a minute. The alpha flame surged in response, sending waves of protective power through the palace that knocked several of Adrian's soldiers off their feet. That's it, the head healer encouraged. The child is coming. Your Majesty, you need to push. But Evelina was looking past the healer, past Lewis, toward the throne room doors where Adrian Floyd himself was striding in, flanked by 24 elite guards. His copper eyes blazed with rage and desperation. Stand down, Lewis, Adrian commanded. Your reign is over. Your bloodline is corrupted. That child cannot be allowed to live. Lewis shifted partially, his claws extending, his eyes burning gold. You'll have to kill me first. If that's what it takes. Adrian's own wolf surged forward. I didn't want it to come to this, old friend. But you left me no choice. You rejected your mate, your kingdom fell apart. And now you're trying to legitimize a child conceived in rejection. The old laws are clear. Such a child has no claim to the throne. The old laws, Evelina gasped, struggling to her feet despite the healer's protests, were written by alphas afraid of lunar bloodline power. They exterminated my ancestors because we threatened their dominance. Well, guess what, Adrian? We're not extinct. And this child. Another contraction cut her off, driving her back to her knees. This child is going to reshape everything you think you know about power. Adrian laughed, cruel and dismissive. You're a rejected Omega who should have died months ago. You're nothing. She's my queen. Lewis's voice was deadly quiet. And you will address her as such or lose your tongue. Your queen. Adrian gestured at the throne room, at the makeshift birthing area, at Evelina laboring on the dais steps. You haven't even crowned her. She has no legal standing. That child has no legal claim. You've built your entire defense on sentiment and desperation. Lewis froze. Adrian was right. In the chaos of restoring the bond and preparing for the birth, he hadn't performed the formal coronation ceremony. Evelina was his mate but not yet officially his queen. The child would be his heir but without legal protection until. Then we crown her now. Lewis turned to Thorn. Bring the crown. Bring the royal seal. We do it now. Your Majesty, there are procedures, ceremonies that must be. Now! The command shook the throne room. Thorn scrambled to obey, rushing to the vault where the queen's crown had sat unused for decades. Adrian moved forward, his guards fanning out to surround the dais. It's too late, Lewis. My forces control the palace. Your loyal guards are dead or captured. And that Omega is about to. Evelina's scream of pain cut him off. But this scream was different, not just pain but power. Raw, ancient, overwhelming power that made every wolf in the room drop to their knees in involuntary submission. The alpha flame exploded into a pillar of brilliant light that illuminated the entire throne room. "The child," the healer gasped. "It's coming. Your Majesty, push." Thorn returned with the queen's crown, an ancient circlet of silver and moonstone that hadn't been worn in Louis's lifetime. His hands shook as he offered it to the king. Adrian lunged forward. "Don't you dare." Louis moved faster, placing himself between Adrian and Evelina. "You want this throne. You want this kingdom. You'll have to go through me." He turned to Evelina, kneeling beside her, holding the crown in bloodied hands. "Evelina Tom, I rejected you once. I threw away the greatest gift the moon goddess ever gave me. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve your love. But this kingdom needs you. Our child needs you. And I am begging you." His voice broke. "Will you be my queen? Not because I command it. Not because law demands it. But because you choose it. Because you're willing to rule beside me as an equal." Evelina met his gaze through the pain, through the power crackling around her, through everything. "Yes," she gasped. "I choose this. I choose us." Louis placed the crown on her head just as another massive contraction seized her. The moment the moonstone touched her silver hair, the alpha flame roared to life with such intensity that Adrian and his guards were blown backward by the sheer force of it. "No!" Adrian scrambled to his feet. "This isn't legitimate. The ceremony wasn't complete. The council didn't vote. The alpha flame says otherwise." Councilman Thorne's voice carried quiet authority as he stared at the blazing pillar of light. "The ancient magic recognizes her. The throne accepts her. She is queen. She's an omega." Violet Curry shrieked from the doorway. "An omega cannot rule. A lunar bloodline omega can do anything she wants." Evelina's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Then she screamed again, bearing down with everything she had. The child came in a rush of power and blood and light. The healer caught the baby, and for a moment, perfect silence fell over the throne room. Then the infant drew its first breath and wailed, and the alpha flame responded with such brilliance that everyone had to shield their eyes. "A girl," the healer whispered in awe. "Your Majesty, you have a daughter." Louis stared at the tiny creature in the healer's arms, at the silver hair already visible on her head, at the power radiating from her small form. His daughter. His heir. The child opened her eyes. One gold, one silver. And the alpha flame stabilized, settling into a steady, powerful burn that hadn't existed in decades. Adrian backed toward the door, his face pale. "This changes nothing. The people won't accept. The alpha flame accepts her." Louis rose, his wolf fully present, his power absolute. "The throne accepts her. Accept her. My queen accepts her. And anyone who challenges my daughter's right to exist will answer to me personally." He turned to face Adrian fully, his voice carrying to every corner of the throne room. "You came here to murder my pregnant mate. You allied with Violet Curry to eliminate an innocent child. You attacked your own king during the birth of his heir. Those are acts of treason, Adrian. The punishment is death. You can't execute me without a trial." Adrian snarled. "The council voted to accept Evelina as queen the moment the alpha flame recognized her," Thorne interrupted smoothly. "Which means her first act as queen can be to pass judgment on traitors." He turned to Evelina. "Your Majesty." Evelina held her daughter close, the baby already nuzzling against her, seeking comfort. She looked at Adrian with eyes that had seen too much suffering, too much betrayal. "Exile," she said quietly. "Adrian Floyd, you and your forces will leave the Northern Territories and never return. Your lands are forfeit. Your title is stripped. If you ever threaten my family again, my mate will make good on his promise to end your bloodline." Adrian's face twisted with rage. "This isn't over. That child is an abomination. The other kingdoms won't accept. The other kingdoms will accept what I tell them to accept." Louis's smile was terrifying. "Because I am the Alpha King. My queen is crowned. My heir has ignited the alpha flame. And anyone who challenges us will face the combined might of royal blood and lunar bloodline power. He stepped closer to Adrian. Now get out of my palace before I forget my mate's mercy and kill you anyway. Adrian fled, Violet and his remaining forces scrambling after him. The throne room erupted in whispers, in shock, in awe. A lunar Omega queen. A hybrid heir with one gold eye and one silver. The alpha flame burning brighter than it had in generations. Everything had changed. Louis returned to Evelina's side, kneeling on the blood-stained marble, gently touching his daughter's tiny hand. She's perfect. She's ours. Evelina's voice was exhausted but triumphant. And no one will ever make her feel disposable or weak or less than she is. Never, Louis swore. She'll grow up knowing her mother is the most powerful queen in shifter history. That her bloodline is blessed, not cursed. That being different makes her extraordinary, not inferior. Their daughter made a small sound, and both parents leaned in, captivated by this tiny life that had survived impossible odds. The rejected Omega was now the crowned queen. The Heartless Alpha King had learned to love. And the child born from rejection would become the most powerful shifter of her generation. The Northern Territories would never be the same. Thank you for joining the pack today. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and tap the moon bell so you never miss the next Alpha Destiny. And tell me in the comments, who should we follow next under the full moon?